All right, awesome. Hey guys, welcome to Fire Friday. It is Friday, June 23rd. Is it really already almost the end of June? That is insane. Feels like it's picking up speed. So excited for you guys to be hanging out with us. This is, for those of you that may be doing this for the first time, every Friday, with the exception for our first Friday partner Zoom that we do every month. We get together and talk agent attraction. So, lots of production talk at other times and lots of other things that we do and lots of training. But today we focus on the other avenue for building wealth, the long-term opportunity for everybody here at eXp Realty. And I'm really, really excited that one of the coolest, smartest and nicest and most handsome people that I know, Cliff Freeman, he was looking to make sure I was talking about him for a second there. Is joining us on today's call, and you guys have seen him out there. You've seen him up on stage. You've heard him speak and everything else like that. And many of you have had a chance to get to know him, shake him, and see his very stylish jackets that he wears at all of our events. He is amongst our top influencers in the company. He's done some really cool things. And I always appreciate his perspective and that kind of stuff. So Cliff, man, I really appreciate you taking some time and coming to hang out with us, buddy.
Well, Dave, I think after that introduction, I'll just say good morning, everybody. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
Mic drop, Cliff out.
I'm done. I can't. Well, yeah, I was looking around to see who that guy was you were talking about. But that's what we say, Dave, here in Texas, is don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. So that was a great story. I appreciate that. Well, it's great to see all of this talent on one call. You've got a great group here, Dave, and wow, this is terrific. I'm a little nervous. I still get butterflies in my stomach, and I actually, my dad, when I was 15, took me to the Fox Theater to see Bob Hope in Atlanta, and he was still in his late, season of life, and he told the story about someone asked him if he still got nervous when he got on stage, and he said, of course I do. And he said, the day that I don't is the day that I retire. So having a few butterflies is a good thing. And it just means that you're alive and you feel things. So that's really great. So I've not been on one of your calls, Dave, yet. Is this sort of, are we doing this conversationally, Q&A, interview style? How can we best serve your group here?
So what we're going to do, this group here this is the group that is, they've decided that they really want to utilize, the agent attraction opportunity and that kind of stuff. So they tune in on this. This will be recorded out for those that weren't able to make it this morning. So that's that's obviously the key focus for what we've got. And I'm gonna pitch out a few things, but what I like to do when I'm bringing you in is, you're here because you're killing at this, more than anyone else on this call. So more than anything else, whatever you think is important for us to hear, we want to hear. But if you need any direction or guidance on some things that we might, categories, then I'm happy to throw those out, but I don't want to get in your way.
Yeah. So, the thing about it is my journey to 12,000 agents and 51 FLQAs has been kind of unique, but there's a lot that I think that we can learn from it. And as you go through different stages in the attraction process, I started out just like most of you did, I'm sure, with all zeros in my account. I didn't bring anybody over with me. It was just me when I moved. And I really got off the ground kind of like a herd of turtles. Actually, I brought on board 12 people my first year, which was, you look back and there are people now who've joined, and I could mention some names, but you probably know them, that got to 1,000 people in their first year, or at least 13 months, and have got 283 FLQAs, and makes what I've done kind of look like child's play. But I guess the lessons that I've learned throughout this past 6 or so years, just over 6 years, really are just the basic blocking and tackling that you've got to do on a consistent basis. And it's just like prospecting anything. I'll never forget, I was in Puerto Vallarta with a group of about 80 people in 2017. And that was Rob Flick's deal that he did down there. I don't even know if we called it what we called it. But it was like his whole world was right there. That sounds like a pretty small group. It was. It grew quickly after that. But I just remember some of the things that Rob told me back then. And one that I've always really kept in mind is you have to, if you're in production, you can't just flip a switch, stop what you're doing and go into attraction. He said, look, and I did it because I had 4 kids in college, and I was having to work. I had coaching income, transaction income, and I had to replace income in order to replace time in my schedule. Does that make sense? So I started out Freaky Friday 2 hours a day. I'll go into that in a little bit. But what Rob said was, if you're in the real estate business and you're dealing with buyers and sellers, and your routine, say every week, is to contact 2 new buyers and 2 new sellers a week, then you just have to change your daily habits a little bit. Instead of doing 2 buyers and 2 sellers a week, just do 2 buyers, 2 sellers, and 2 agents. 2 buyers, 2 sellers, and 2 agents. Because the attraction process for agents is not unlike, guys, what we do to get listings. And when we go out to a listing and we're got our peacock feathers up and we're showing our stuff, the reality is we've got to relate and build rapport with that seller, do it in in a matter of short period of time, and then have them want to do business with us. So if you will just keep that in mind, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about mindset here. When we got started, I think, gosh, Dave, this goes back to 2016. I think a lot of people looked at EXP as sort of from the short term, right? Like they could jump over here, bring a bunch of people, and boom, the money tree would start dropping, dollar bills in their front yard. And it really didn't do that. It took time. It takes time to build. What I want you guys to do is, I was in it 2 years before I really got this, is number one, if you believe that revenue share is passive income, you've got to get that out of your head right now, because you're building the passive income, right? You're building it. It's not passive until you don't have to do anything anymore. But as you're building and growing, I'm working harder than I ever have, because I have more people that I have to serve, and I have to help them grow so that they can build their legacies now. That's a different part of the revenue share roller coaster that I'm on than you guys might be on. Some of you may be in that position, but the reality is that you've got to do the work. I recently read a book called The Road Less Stupid. Has anybody read that?
I've seen that one. I haven't read it yet. Was it good?
It's a great read. I had it on Audible. I spent 2 hours on the tarmac coming in from Scottsdale Wednesday, so I got to go through quite a bit of it. But there were some notes that I took from that book, and I want to share this one about passive income with you. It says, passive anything is a bad idea and unworkable because it requires us to fall into the trap of thinking there is a way to do nothing and still get what we want and retain what we have by being inactive. No part of your life or business works this way. Think about it. If your relationships are passive with your family and your friends, those relationships will fade away. If your relationships with the people that you bring on board are passive, those relationships will fade away. Those people whom you bring on board are looking at you for leadership and guidance. And that's when I started to really understand the notion of, hey, this revenue share game, what it's really about is about leaders creating other leaders. That's how you build leverage. If you were with KW, you probably remember the 3 L's, right? Who remembers the 3 L's? Lead, listings, and leverage, right? Leads, listing, and leverage. Well, in attraction, it's relationships first, right? Listings are agents that you're prospecting, and then leverage are your systems. So you've got to have a 3-legged bar stool. If you don't have the leads, the agents, and the systems in place, your bar stool is going to fall over, because the fortune, friends, is in the follow-up. I've got people that I spoke to 2-3 years ago who are finally opening their gate and willing to take an honest look at EXP. And that's really the thing that we fight, guys, besides ourselves. And you've heard Brent say that the enemy is the inner me. We tell ourselves, we fill our heads full of self-talk that's not helpful, not great. We focus on the little stuff and complain and bitch about stuff that really doesn't matter. If we just stayed focused, how many of you ski? Any skiers out there? Okay. What do they teach you when you start skiing? You go, you focus, that's where you go. You go where you focus. If you're looking at the trees the whole time, guess where you're going? You're going to go into the trees, right? So you focus down the slope. It's kind of like Wayne Gretzky skating where he knows the puck is going, right? So relationships, guys, isn't this wonderful? The real estate business allows you to build relationships with so many people. Now, EXP allows you to monetize those relationships. I spent probably 20-25 years being prepared. I really think God had a plan for me and prepared me for that introduction to EXP, because he allowed me to meet some of the top agents in the country through coaching and building relationships. A lot of people ask me, what do I need to do to build a revenue share group like you did? I get that question a lot. And it's a very difficult question to answer. I can only tell you what I did. I can't tell you what you need to do other than just work hard. Go get that A.L. Williams video and, the just do it and do it and do it, because that's what it's all about, friends. You just got to get out and do it and pick up that phone when you don't want to. Never eat alone. If you probably read that book, never eat alone. If you're going to have lunch, make sure it's with somebody that's a prospect, whether it's a real estate prospect or an agent prospect, guys. That's why I say, do you see now why I say this is not passive? I spend about half of my time now supporting people in my revenue share group on third-party calls. I'm kind of the go-to guy for older independent brokers, and I'm happy to help any of you. If you ever need somebody to pick up the phone and you've got a team or a small brokerage, of course, that's Dave's, sweet spot. But, if they want somebody older and wiser, I'm happy to, I'm just kidding, Dave. If they want somebody older, then I can, certainly, fill that role for you. And it does help, guys. I look back and like I said, I got out like a herd of turtles in the beginning. If it were not for Brent Gove, who was my sponsor, who poured into me, who would not let me fail. He kept picking me up and kicking my ass every time I would slip or fall or something. But he believed in me, and I realized that I believed in myself as much as he believed in me. And here's another issue, guys. If you believe in somebody in your group more than they believe in themselves, you have a problem. It's not a good relationship. Okay. So you have to be selective about who you're going to pour your time into. It's really important. So with that, let me just say this. As you're thinking about who do I want to prospect, start with the prospects you want. Start with those that you already have a relationship with. Take a list of 50 of the people, the top influencers. By the way, if you're just recruiting real estate, individual real estate agents all the time, then you're going to have a line full of individual real estate agents. if you're not recruiting influencers and whales and really stepping out of your comfort zone, then you're going to have a pretty average line. But all it takes is one Brent Gove or one Dave Kennord or one Jay Kinder or one Rob Flick. And guess what? Your life will be changed forever. So grow some stones, grow some beans, as my son would say, and don't be afraid to go talk to people who are, whose income has another 0 or 2 on it compared to yours right now. Doesn't make any difference. All right. You know the story about how Brent Gove got the EXP. Dave, does everybody know that here?
I think most have probably heard that from Brent.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a freak chance phone call from Sheila Fejeron, who had met Brent a year earlier at an event. And she just said, I don't care. He's a big catch. That's what I want. And she called him. And she was able to get him to watch the video, took him to shareholders in San Antonio with about, I don't know, what were there, 100 people there or something like that?
It was tiny.
Can you imagine?
No.
And of course, see, some people see this like me and they just go, this is what I've been trying to figure out, my career. How do we get out of here? How do you get ownership into the hands of the agents? How do you get income in, distributed like this to support the growth of the brokerage and so forth? And so when I saw it, boom, I mean, I was done. We want to look for people like, again, Rob Flick. This is something you might want to write down. We're looking for people who are looking for us. We're not trying to put anybody in a headlock and EXP all over them. Okay. That's not what we do. We're actually consultative and want to help them solve business problems and create legacies, looking for people who are looking for us. Yes. So start with the prospects you want. And I want you to start with the gap. This is really important. Start with the gap between the solutions being offered by their current broker and where they're getting frustrated. Everybody, if you get their shields down and build or in rapport, you'll get them to tell you what it is that is itching, what needs scratching. Okay, I don't care who it is, where it is, there's no brokerage that's perfect. And if you can get clear on that, and then secondly, get clear on what their definition of success is. And let me tell you why that's important. When I was new in this recruiting thing, attraction thing, I used to go out and tell everybody about the stock and how great it was to be able to hold shares in a publicly traded company, how you could build a legacy through revenue share. And that was my lead, right? Because that's what excited me the most. But what I found was when I was talking to agents, that's not what was on the top of their minds. And to them, success, they define success as, well, they wanted to build a real estate team. They don't really care about revenue share right now or equity ownership. They just wanted to know, how do I build a real estate team? Because that's their definition of success. So if your message doesn't meet the market, and if you're trying to convince them of something, first of all, you don't have to convince them of anything. EXP does its own selling. Okay. If you just look at the benefits of being over here rather than the features and focus on the benefits, people will come to their own conclusion. Folks, I want to tell you, a man's mind changed against his will is of the same opinion still. A man's mind changed against his will is of the same opinion still. It's not our job to change people's minds. It's our job to give them the information so that they can change their own mind, because they're always going to believe what they tell themselves. They're rarely going to believe what we say, but as soon as they say it to themselves, that's when you got them. Okay, does that make sense? How about if I pause, Dave, and just check in with everybody? I hate to just be up here and spout for 30 minutes. I'd much rather get some interaction going here and take some questions and see if I can help anybody with some specific trouble or.
Yeah, that's awesome, Cliff. Thank you, man. I've got a page and a half of notes already on stuff. So yeah, this is really, really good. Guys, what questions do you have for Cliff? What can he throw out there for you?
Who was your
Cliff.
first?
I have a hard time closing. I get people interested, have good conversations. I get a 3-way call with Dave, and then they just like ghost me. And I text them, I leave them voicemails. I don't do it a lot, but like once a week. Hey, how you doing? You got any suggestions on getting to the finish line?
I do. Yeah. Are you married?
Yeah, I am.
How many times did you have to go out with your wife before she agreed to marry you?
Couple years.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
get the message?
Yeah, takes time.
Because it's a big decision for somebody. Even though they can see it, they can't unsee it, but it doesn't mean that their personal circumstances, maybe they have a relationship or owe money to that other broker. You don't know what's going on in their lives, really. And it could be that just, how God answers prayers. Sorry about that. Well, guess who that is? Chris Bear calling me this time of day. God answers prayers 3 ways. It's yes, no, or not right now. And so when you're getting brushed off like that, it doesn't mean that they don't like EXP and want to come over here. It may just mean that now's not a good time. So your job, again, and if you're in rapport and have a relationship with this person, then just the fact that you've shown them EXP and introduced them to Dave is no reason for that relationship to all of a sudden fall apart. So that, again, what I try to do is I try to build relationships, and that way I get permission from them to talk to them about EXP. I don't know if they're not calling you, if they're ghosting you and things like that. Maybe give them a little bit of space and just give them a couple of weeks to cool off, and then just call them back and say, hey, leave them a voicemail. Look, I've got my hat in my hands and my tail between my legs here. I had no idea that, having a conversation about EXP was going to, result in us not being friends anymore. I want to mend that fence, because I don't care if you stay at Remax or whatever. I still value our friendship. Would you please give me a call, you jack wagon? And have fun with them and call them whatever you want to. But seriously, don't let EXP get in the way of making friends with people. We don't want a breakup because you told them about EXP. We just want them to say, I'm not interested right now, or, it's not really for me, but let's still be friends. So make sure you have that kind of agreement before you start. Because here's the thing. You guys know what commission breath is? It's amazing. A seller's bullshit detectors can pick up commission breath very easily. And are there any women on this call? I have to be careful here.
I got a couple.
Yeah, and in due respect, I'm using the male pronoun a lot, and I should be saying he or she and all that kind of thing, and I apologize. But you've got to boy, that just derailed my whole thought process there. I think I just lost commission breath, right. It's so easy if you start getting more excited, and as they're on that call and they can see that you're getting all excited and things about that, they can detect that, wow, I got to this call, it's turned into more of a sales fest, and that's what we don't want to have. Because a close, guys, here's the thing. There are so many different types of closes in the world, but when you close a salesperson and they're not ready to be closed, that's when they can shut the door down. Salespeople understand the process of being sold. We do it all day long, all the time. We're some of the easiest people to sell if it's done right. Yet on the other hand, we also know when we're being sold, and a lot of us don't like that. So I would just go back, maybe look at some of the conversations that you had. Were they salesy? Were they about EXP? Were they about, hey, I'm here to help you solve problems? Were they coming from the heart? Be honest with yourself. Go back and look and see. Every time I used to lose a listing appointment, I was one of those guys. I went to Sharper Image and bought one of the pens that had the video recorder and the sound thing, and I'd put it in with my pocket square, and I'd point it right at the seller as I was going through my listing presentation. And when I lost the listing presentation, I would go back and watch the video to try to figure out what was it that there was probably one thing that I said that was the wrong thing. And like one of them, I said, great, we'll get it listed. Then we'll go in and we'll redo your front yard, put a bunch of pansies out and really give it some drive up appeal. And it was that point when I was watching the seller, they shut down just like that. And it was because I kept talking and I kept trying to sell and let them know how great I was. And when you have the deal, when you get the ink, that's when, for me, the time to be quiet is. And I'm not saying that's what happened to you, Chris. I'm just saying, just go back and learn, watch the video of your golf swing and see, if you're not setting the club right at the top, see if your hands are ahead, when you come down, whatever it is, figure it out. And Dave has great discernment when it comes. I don't know if you guys talked about the person who ghosted you, but I bet Dave could offer some insight based on what he saw during the call. Go ahead, Dave.
That's really good stuff, Cliff. Yeah, and I love in the conversation we get carried away, we get excited, and it's really easy to start. We can see that it's a great fit for them. So from our chair, we're like, this is great for you. How can you not see this? But going through this over and over again, and Cliff, I do the same thing. I took notes. I didn't do the video. I like that, but going over my notes and trying to figure some stuff out. And it's always going to come down to you talked about finding a gap, right? Finding that gap for them, get clear on their definition of success, find their pain points. And so when you do, instead of going for a hard close, do the trial closes, throw out a couple of little trial closes to see where they are, take their temperature, kind of just say, you're asking a couple of questions for them about making that move, see if they could picture themselves here, ask them if they feel like this might help them with their business, with this, could you see yourself with X, Y, and Z, right? You start to just throw out there to see, take their temperature a little bit. And if they don't bite, if you get a little bit of a hem and a haw, or I'm not sure, maybe that kind of stuff, then you haven't found the pain point yet. You haven't found the thing where like, this is what I really need, and I can see that EXP in this group is going to provide that for me. I could, it's when your buyers start placing their furniture in the house, right? Is when okay, they're picturing themselves living in this house. If they're not picturing themselves being at EXP and succeeding here, if they're not getting a snapshot of them living a great life because they're here at EXP, then they haven't made that switch yet. So you're trying to close them on the house. They're walking through and going, we kind of like the house. I don't know if it's right for us. And you're like, it's a great deal. It's under market. It's what, like, they don't care what the price is. They don't care what the value is if it's not where they want to live. So you gotta get a feel if can they picture themselves living at EXP and doing business here and succeeding? Are they looking at their future? They stand next to each other and put their arm around each other and look into the distance and go, I can see ourselves raising our family here, right? So throwing out those things. And if they're not seeing that, then we haven't figured out what their needs are yet, what's their pain point.
Yeah. And not everybody likes to have their Zoom calls recorded, but if you can go back, Chris, and watch some of the interactions that you've had and just look for things, I'm telling you, it's the funniest things. You could say one thing that just turns them completely off. Maybe it's maybe you talk about rev share and they could care less about rev share. That
definitely has happened in the past. I used to focus on it a lot because I'm excited about it. But
yes.
So Chris,
they just want to sell houses,
Yeah.
Chris, I'll add this to you and I'm learning this too, because I'm talking to people on a weekly basis. People are not going to move or change until they find value in what you're telling them. And you're not going to provide them that value until you know exactly what road they want to go down. So if you're doing 80% of the listening, when you start talking to them, really find out, this is what Cliff is talking about, Dave is talking about. Got to really dial into what their pain is and what they're really trying to accomplish. Then you can provide value in what you're speaking about. So one, you really want to know what you're talking about. You got to be comfortable talking about EXP and what our value propositions are. So we have so many of them, but you can't throw all of them at them at once because they can't absorb it anyway. You're just trying to throw the stuff at them that they really need. And the second thing I'll add is don't be afraid of failure. I think people look at failure as a negative thing. Failure is progress. That means you tried something. That means you're trying to do something to go forward. Now, how you use that failure is what's going to be the difference. Take the failure, learn from it, which is what Cliff is talking about. Think about your script. What did I say? How did I approach it? Learn from the failure, and then your progress will turn into positive results. But don't ever be afraid of failing. That goes for everybody. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So that part of it, you got to have thick skin and roll off it, but learn from it. Sorry to interject.
No, that's great, Frank. And it's a numbers game. I mean, Cliff knows this. Cliff, you've got you're over 12,000 people in your organization or somewhere in that ballpark.
I've just failed a lot more than you guys. That's it.
So you've got, I mean, you're in triple digits on your front line. But I would say if you're over 100 people in your front line, then you have probably talked to 500 people to get to 100, somewhere in that number. And it's a numbers game. So if you want to get the people, it's you don't know, we kind of expect it and say, okay, well, if we're supposed to get one for every 4 we talk to or whatever it is, then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But it might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so you don't know out of that number when they're going to be. So you just need to get all the at-bats that possible. Just keep swinging, because it's not in an organized progression. It's a percentage, it's a numbers game, but there's no guarantee that it's, that it falls into the average, and that kind of stuff. So you just don't know. So you might get 100 no's and then get 30 people join. You don't know how it's all going to play out. So you just keep going.
So just real quick in closing, a great short read that I might suggest is something called Go for No. And it's Kyle's read it. I used to coach this, and we get into groups. The sad thing is it's something like 75, or it's worse than that. It's like 90%, I think, of people retire without enough money to retire. I mean, it's just because they won't go out and do the work. And it's not mean having 6 jobs or something like that. Retirement is just work on the planning. Be strategic about your attraction. Don't just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. You want to be intentionally strategic. That's why I said start out initially with a list of 50 prime candidates that are going to be the ones who can change your life, and stay on them. Make that a focus of your attraction. Sure, you're going to meet people along the way, the onesie twosies, and you're going to tell them about EXP, and it's going to help them and change their lives. But, use your time well. That's the one asset we can't make more of, is time. And if you're not getting an ROI on your attraction prospecting right now, you might want to shift your focus a little bit, and definitely shift your tactics. Get some help. Get somebody, role play this, guys. This is no different than learning how to go out and learn the language of a listing presentation. It's no different. Another great book, is it Mark Free's Question-Based Selling? Used to be the sales Bible for IBM. It's all about the questions you ask. Zig gave me, I used to sit next to Zig in church, and he told me, and he wrote that God gave you two ears and one mouth. And the reason why is you need to be listening at least twice as much as you're talking whenever you're in sales. So if you're not asking the right questions and not getting them to open their gates, then, you need to learn those questions and practice them. Maybe we should do a role play or something sometime, Dave.
I love it. Yeah. I would definitely be down for that, Cliff. So, all right, I'm going to rapid fire you a couple short answer questions here real quick as we get ready to get out of here.
Yeah, and actually, I got a call that started 10 minutes ago.
Oh, geez, I gotta let you get going. All right, so let me ask you this one question. Question. if you could go get 1 or 2 influencers or 10 to 20 single agents, what would you go get?
Oh, I'd get the implementers all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the leverage, guys. That's the leverage. You don't have, I didn't go recruit 12,000 agents. I recruited 6 people who helped build an organization of 12,000 agents. Each one of those 6 people contributed, thousands through their efforts and the people that they brought on. So that's what I think when I say intentionally strategic, don't just go out there and shotgun it. Think about who you're inviting. Are they a builder? Ask yourself, are they an influencer? Can they, what's their reach? How many people can they bring on board? And you can tell, look at their history. It's not hard. You can see the people who were movers and shakers in the business. And a lot of them don't have big, prominent, names with NAR and coaching and all this kind of stuff. They're kind of the millionaire next door, but they're the quiet ones that, maybe they're looking to transition a career, but they've got 300 agents at their small independent brokerage, something like that. I mean, those are the ones that can really bring the influence and the wisdom to help you grow exponentially. I mean, that's where the real, pop comes from. It's not from trying to go get an agent at a time. It would take forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. All right, Cliff, man, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us, brother. I appreciate you. Everybody's scribbling notes like crazy. We got all kinds of good info. Tell our buddy Chris Bear that we apologize for stealing you too long.
No worries. He'll be fine. Don't worry.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for joining us for Fire Friday. We've got an awesome group coming up, and I should be hanging out in person with Dean Frederick next Friday doing our Fire Friday. So we'll be having some fun. Cliff, thanks again for being here, man. We appreciate you. Love you.
Got it. Thank you, guys. Much love from Prosper, Texas.
There you go. Grady's right down the street at Granbury. So
there you go.
all right. Thank you, guys. Have an awesome weekend.
Hi, guys.
Take care.